little life from the garden. I'm having another cup of tea. Let's see if I, sorry about that. I hit the on off button on the screen. There we are. If I can get this to work without being too top heavy. I'm not very good at these tripods. There we go, that's a little better. Oops. There we go. Let you see a little nature that I'm enjoying. It's exactly what I'm looking at right at the moment. Big old pine trees behind the house, and our neighbor's yard actually that hangs over into our yard kind of. Some of these need to be pruned a little bit. We've actually got one branch going halfway across the yard. That's kind of a fire hazard, right? Got to deal with that. There's the doves. Not really getting any quail in here right now, and it's kind of a good thing because they're all grown up and all they want to do is eat my seedlings. This is my happy place. I love this garden. See the hummingbird? Yeah. Nice cup of tea. Very peaceful. Everything got green again once the temperatures came down. That's really nice. For a while I was worried we were going to lose some of our trees, but they all pulled through. The only thing we actually lost is a yellow bird of paradise, and actually I kind of decided I don't really want too many things that aren't like food producing in our backyard. So I'm not going to miss that much. When you have a small space to grow in, I mean, flowers are nice, especially if they're edible flowers, because the hummingbirds like them and they're cheerful, and it actually helps attract bees, which is nice. But herbs are really good for flowering and attracting bees as well, along with all your fruit producing, and I guess squash is a fruit, right? Fruits and vegetables, those flowers attract bees. So you don't really have to have that much ornamental flowering plants, bushes. Looks like all the doves are here. No pigeons. This summer, our neighbor helped my husband put pigeon guard around our solar panels, because if you have solar panels, hey, good morning. Slayer Edits, thanks for joining us. I can just barely see you popping up in the feed. Hey, Macon, thanks for joining us. Yeah, my husband, the neighbor, helped put some pigeon guard around our solar panels, because if you don't, the pigeons will get under there and they'll nest and they make a huge mess. And unfortunately, the pigeons here aren't that clean. It's not the same as the pigeons I used to use, carrier pigeons, for sending messages, unfortunately. But it's pretty peaceful out here in the garden. Turn a little bit. You can see we've got a lemon back there in the background. It actually has a few lemons on it. We had a hard time adjusting our water to the conditions. There's a such thing as overwatering, and water here is expensive. We are in drought country, right? But you can't underwater either. But we finally figured it out. I think a lot of people had problems with their fruit trees this year, actually all of their foliage, just because we had 5 days of almost 120. There's a difference between drought tolerance and heat tolerance, and most things aren't meant to live at 120. But you can see we have a mandarin there, and behind it's a lemon, and to the left is an almond. We have a couple of apples in our yard. That bush right there to the left is an apple, and down there, excuse the mess, is a grapefruit. It's a dwarf ruby red grapefruit, and that thing has been a superstar. It's not very big, and it actually has at least 10 grapefruits on it, and they'll get to be full size. The last 2 years we've gotten 8 grapefruits from that. There's another apple. Behind the apple is a fig tree. I think the doves are kind of peaceful. Actually, what they do that I really like is they coo, but usually they do that more going into the heat of the summer. I haven't been hearing them much lately. But I have a lot of fun projects I want to work on. I have been recovering from surgery, so I've had to take it easy. I've got about 3 more weeks of light duty is what I'm calling it. So in that time frame, I've been doing sewing projects because fabric doesn't weigh much and it's pretty stationary. But I definitely want to get some canning going again. I haven't made any tomato sauce or tomato paste and jarred it in a couple years. I do that about every 2 years because it's a big process. And I have some fruit that a friend brought back for me from her family's orchard in Utah. I want to do some canning with that. I make a lot of sauces, which is kind of cool. You can really make food taste great with homemade sauces. And last year we made shampoo. We made homemade shampoo, and I came across another recipe for a shampoo bar that looks really, really interesting that I'd like to try. So that would be kind of fun too. And now that it's cooled off, we could make some more turtles. Don't know if you caught any of our turtle making and turtle painting videos. That's really fun. It's kind of cool when you can turn cement into art or landscape decorating. I like to think my turtles are pretty awesome. That ceramic or the concrete acid stain actually is what we're using. That concrete acid stain is really cool stuff. It looks like water, but it etches color into your concrete or your cement, and it's permanent, and it doesn't even fade with all the sunlight we get here, which is pretty cool. A few days ago, we transplanted some cruciferous vegetables out. We've been growing them on our hydroponics, and I have them in these little hoop cages, and they're netted, and so far none of the critters have gotten them, and we timed it really well because the heat is going away now, right? Cruciferous does really well in cooler temperatures. We have 2 types of doves out there. We have mourning doves and we have Eastern European ringneck doves. My husband caught another rat today, which is great. Those rats have been a real pain. Pretty sure they've been eating some of the pomegranates. Can you see the hummingbird up there? Up to the left. There we go. That little guy's pretty cool. There's a female and a male, and they are surprisingly territorial. They actually run off any other hummingbirds that come in. Who wants to see the pumpkins that are growing? Let's go check those out. I don't know if they're gonna get much bigger. Haha. I don't like it when I stand up. Maybe you want to see a kumquat. If you live in a drought area with a lot of heat, I highly recommend kumquats. This thing did really well, and it's putting on kumquats. Of course, they're really green right now. They'll start to get kind of a golden orange as the temperatures come down. Let's go check out that pumpkin. Pistachio. Ooh, it's still blooming. See that? Those nets are hopefully to help with the rat situation, right? Unfortunately, when you live outside of a city, there's a lot of construction going on. You have rats. It's our dying bird of paradise. I don't know if we're gonna get anything off of that watermelon, but who knows? It could happen. There's a bee over there. Ooh, that's promising. Let's see if we can get a video of the bee. See it? Those little bees are our best friend. Tell you what, there's not a lot that's going to happen in this world without bees. Not as far as food production goes. And we still have at least 12 hours of light. Watermelons are really picky about light. They don't want more than 12 hours. I actually tried growing a watermelon in Alaska and it died a miserable death. I only got like about 2 leaves on it and it was actually warm. It's just that we have almost 24 hours of light there in the summertime and they do not like that. Hi there. You do your work. We'll leave you alone. And look at that vine on this pumpkin. That's huge. It's about half the size of my wrist. It's crazy. Apricot tree made it through. I do have some seeds that I need to start though, because look at that. We have a real borer infestation and I've been treating it, but unfortunately I haven't been able to get rid of them. Those borers are really problematic here. And one thing I'm learning is when you buy fruit trees from the orchard, you actually have to really examine them closely to make sure they don't have fungal infections or any bug infestations. The orchards aren't always that careful about what they sell you. Nurseries. And we saw some green beans. I got those in, I think, a couple weeks ago. Maybe 3, actually probably 3 weeks ago. Yeah, I think I did that before I had surgery. Over here you can see, they're actually temporary cold frames that I put nets over. And those are great because you don't really want, oops, I gotta fix that area, that net's coming off, right? You don't want the nets resting right on the plants because when the water comes down, it'll hold water in one spot and you could have some rotting of your plants, so you don't want that. But the nets are to help keep the critters from eating anything. So let's look at some herbs here. I just harvested mullein. I did a short video. Actually, it was alive on mullein. This is some marjoram. It's the first time I've ever grown marjoram. And I kind of feel like it's great for, I don't know, vinegar making. I'm sure some people use it in sausage. It's the first time I've ever actually had it. Here is some horehound. It kind of has a licorice flavor. It'd be good in throat lozenges if you wanted to make some. Some spearmint. It's a mint that does really well here in our heat. The traditional mint likes colder weather. And you know, sometimes you get surprises in your seed packages. They're not always a pure plant. I thought this was going to be an acorn squash and it looks more like a gourd, so I don't know if anybody out there knows what that is. Let me know. Lemon balm. This is actually overwintered 2 years now, so I feel pretty safe to say that this is going to be a perennial. This year it actually reseeded and there's a few new plants coming up, so eventually this whole pot's going to be filled with lemon balm, God willing. I tried some new squashes this year and they really didn't do that fabulous so far, but we do have one miniature, it's actually a miniature variety of butternut squash, which is pretty cool. I love butternut squash. It's going to be a very small serving of butternut squash, as you can see. And I think this is a serrano pepper. This actually overwintered and it's been there since last year, but all the plants were so big it wasn't getting any light and it wasn't thriving. Now I pulled that celery out because it was out of control, and you can see this is blooming now, so I think there's a good chance we're going to get some serrano peppers off of this, which would be awesome. These are some carrots that were late to get started from last year and they're actually still making. Probably about time to see if I see any carrots down there, right? I've reseeded for the winter. Another pepper plant. This is a cucumber. So far we've harvested 2 really nice cucumbers off of that. And we have some spearmint and some rosemary. And let's come over here. Got some eggplant going. See those? There we go. And some more that are blooming. I like to hand pollinate those blooms. The bees don't really seem to get these, right? You can see these better. Look at that. They're setting on really fast. And we have some more basil. And the purseline's kind of at the end, so I'm just letting that go to seed now and I'll collect the seed. This is a purple Ruffles basil that I love. Let's go over to the other side of the garden. Get a good view of these dwarf grapefruits. It's a dwarf ruby red grapefruit. The only thing dwarf about it is the actual bush. These grapefruit get full size. Over here, this is our cool garden, and I'm going to expand on this side. So this is stinging nettle, and it does sting. I have some parsley that I'm growing in here. Everything was eating it, so I put this floating row cover around it to protect it. And in here, a little cilantro. It's not really taking off that well. More spearmint. I love spearmint tea. It's really hard to grow enough of that. And something ate most of my radishes. This is called marshmallow, and this is beneficial for respiratory type colds. It's supposed to help, like if you put it in a throat lozenge or like a cough syrup medication type preparation, it's supposed to help coat your throat. This is clary sage right here. I need to harvest some of that. And over here, I'm happy to report that our arnica survived and is coming back from the base. If you've ever gotten a pain preparation from a chiropractor, they actually have arnica in it, and I don't really feel like it necessarily specifically stops pain, but it helps with inflammation. So I'm wanting to combine this with, say, comfrey for healing. Back there we have one lonely echinacea plant that made it through the summer heat. I don't know if that's gonna be a perennial that comes back from the bottom. It hasn't flowered yet, but it's the first time I've ever actually succeeded in growing echinacea, so that is pretty cool. And here we have giant squash going, and it's made some really nice squash. It seems to be that a spaghetti squash crossed with another type of squash variety. It kind of resembles the delicata and the spaghetti squash. The delicata has a creamier flesh, whereas the spaghetti squash is more stringy. And here, and usually our spaghetti squash is just white, right? And this has a little more green, and it forms a little more of a ridge there. But this has a heavier flesh to it, and it's creamier for sure. And the squash are actually getting bigger. We've already harvested 4 large ones. So I'm actually saving seeds from this because it's a better squash. Will I get the pure squash? Hard to say, but only time will tell. Our yarrow died back. Thankfully, there's still some going in here. And this actually reseeds pretty good. Yarrow is a really, really useful plant, believe it or not. In Alaska, I always thought of it as a weed, but this actually is pretty amazing. Originally, it was used for stopping bleeding, being applied directly as a paste to injuries, but it has a lot of really, really cool properties. If you use it in a tea, the tea itself is supposed to obstruct absorption of nutrients by cancer cells, right? So that is definitely worth looking into. If you're allergic to ragweed, you wouldn't try that. You wouldn't want to have it because it's in the same family, but yeah, definitely look into the properties of yarrow. It's a pretty amazing herb. Back here we have a blackberry that needs to be planted. My friend gave me this, and it actually survived the heat over here in this colder area of our garden. Actually, there's no cold area in our garden. We'll say cooler area. Right here you can see some quinoa. This is an experiment. We started this late. I was trying to get a bunch of this going, and I didn't get it out here soon enough. The heat got going too fast, but I think there's a good possibility that you might be able to grow quinoa here just because it's so dry. So this is an experiment to see how it does. If it does well, we'll be growing more of that. It's a great food. It's actually one of the full carbs that are complete proteins that I might be able to grow here, right? Over here we have a jungle. There's a Thornton tomato that is setting on some cherry tomatoes. I wasn't really sure that it was free seed from the Baker Creek Seed Company. And it's definitely a cherry tomato. And back here in the back is a tomatillo, and I don't see any tomatillo sitting on yet, but I have seen a lot of blooms on it, so there's hope. I really, really like tomatillos. Actually, I don't see any blooms on it right now at all. This tomato is kind of overtaking it. Hopefully we get some tomatillos. That would definitely make my day, make my summer. Actually, I love tomatillos. Tomatillos actually have lutein in them. They're good for your eyes. They kind of have a rhubarb banana taste to them. Oh, there we go. Is that, no, that's, okay, so this is a tomatillo bloom right here, but the tomato is like pushing its way in and overtaking the whole thing, so only time will tell. Now what I'd like to do, this is our apple, Anna apple. This is a very prolific fruiting tree, and it had borers too, but I feel like I succeeded in getting rid of the borers. This puts a lot of fruit on for being such a small apple tree. Last year we made apple pie filling and canned it. This year I canned apple slices and a light simple syrup. And I still actually have fresh apples for eating, right? Almost to the end of them, but I got a lot of months of apple eating out of this. This is a fabulous tree, and it's shorter than I am, so pretty cool, right? Doesn't take up too much room. And here we have our pomegranate tree, and we had so many pomegranates on this, and most of them split because of the heat we had, and several of them got eaten by rats, we think, chipmunks, not sure. Maybe it was a duo, the birds and the rats. But you can see we have a few pomegranates that haven't either split or been munched by the critters, and we had these nice bags that my friend Julie gave us to put over them to protect them. And this pomegranate here is over in the shaded area. It doesn't, oh, it's got a bloom on it. That's pretty cool. It's our almond. Unfortunately, those leaf-footed beetles laid larvae on them, and we didn't figure it out in time because the larva looks like extruded plastic. Very bizarre looking. So next year we will definitely have to treat this tree with an earth-friendly pesticide. And here's our lemon. It survived. It was really, really in bad shape. I wasn't sure if it was going to make it. I don't know if my lemons are really meant for the desert, but you can see we've got some little lemons setting on here. They're definitely small. Normally these things can get pretty big, but it was a rough year for this tree. And if you're looking for a very hardy tree to have in the desert, I highly recommend this fig tree. This thing is still putting on figs. You might get a few more ripe figs. It's kind of late in the season, but what's really cool is you can actually make tea with these fig leaves, and you're supposed to be able to put them in stir fries. We tried it. If you do it, I recommend cutting them up really, really small. They kind of have a nutty fig flavor to them, which tastes good, but the texture, and I wouldn't use big pieces. I kind of had strips, and that was a little much. So I'll probably try it again with little tiny pieces, like finely chopped pieces. This reseeded from one of our grapefruits, and this has been alive for 2 years now, and it survived the heat. I really couldn't tell you if it's a pure grapefruit or if it is whatever the root stock was for the grapefruit. We'll find out in time, I guess. This is our pistachio. Pistachio had a rough year. Pistachio, they are desert dwellers for sure, but you can see some of these got hit by a fungus, right? But some of them look perfect, so I guess we get what we get, and we'll definitely be treating this tree for fungus. It takes a long time for pistachios to really fruit. This is the second year that this is fruited or put on nuts, and they can take up to 20 years to really get into production. And last but not least, we have one more fig. This is a Desert King. It's a cutting that my friend started for me. And I'm probably going to add another fig right here to replace this bird of paradise, just because this is the hot wall of the garden, and the figs do really well along here. Let's get one more video of the bee before we end this live stream. These little guys make it happen. We definitely want to protect the bees. Thanks for joining me in the garden today. Hope you have a blessed day. Thanks for watching.